Today, we're going to be looking at the most argued upon ruling questions in the current format. Now, rather than just giving you guys the answer, we're going to take this old-fashioned into a ruling quiz to see if you know what you're talking about. But there is a twist in this video at the end, where not only am I going to throw a question at you that relates to rulings, but it also relates to your ability to handle scenarios very similar to how judges sometimes have to handle things on the spot with, let's say, limited information. Well, before we get started, here's a shoutouts to Imperium Duelist. This mat right here is the cyberspace black hole. It's one of my own designs. I've had this design in my pocket for quite some time, but wasn't allowed to release it while I was working with Konami. But now that I'm not working with them, all hats are off, or all gloves are off. And yeah, I'm bringing it to you. And I'm working with Imperium Duelist, so this is a collab with Imperium Duelist. It's one of the most beautiful things I've produced. It is so vibrant. It's one of the most colorful things I've designed. And I'm really glad that the way that it came out. I'm super happy about it, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it too. Guys, I know you guys already have play mats and game mats, but if you guys want something very beautiful that you can use basically forever in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, well, you guys can check it out at ImperiumDuelist.com. It's some of the softest material available and some of the most vibrant output that I've ever seen on a game mat. This is the one that I'm going to be using for the indefinite future. I'm going to be taking this one to locals everywhere. So aside from that, you guys check it out ImperiumDuelist.com, and let's get into some of these ruling questions. I'm going to start things off by warming you guys up on a play that you guys need to catch in the current meta. This is something that people argue about. By the time they start arguing about it, it's already too late because someone probably already scooped. So this one's related to the Mjolnir, so let's get to it. So here's the scenario. I'll play it out. You guys, all you have to do is catch the illegal play and, note it down in the comment section. So starting things off, I say I am the K9 player. I'm going to normal summon out my Noroi. My opponent has 2 or more cards in their hand, and through Noroi's effect, it's going to activate, and my opponent activates, say, a card like Dominus Impulse, to negate the additional summon, but there's no additional traps, so this just hits the graveyard. My Noroi is still on the field. The effect is still active. Well, seeing that, that did not really go through, I'm going to activate the Yugioh and reveal the Mjolnir. Both of them are level 5 and special summon both onto the field. Okay. With that, Noroi effect, we're going to activate that, and we're going to look at opponent's hand, seeing that, hey, there's no hand traps, but man, does this person have a ton of board breakers. So rather than play into, say, like a Raigeki or anything like that, to avoid all of that, I'm going to proceed to make a Imperial Princess Queen Query. And because I've Noroi in the graveyard, I'm going to activate Queen Query's effect, detaching the Mjolnir, targeting the Mjolnir to special summon the Mjolnir to the opponent's side of the field. And after that, the Mjolnir effect activates, and my opponent gets locked out. And so when I pass turn here, and then nothing really happens, my opponent can't do anything, and then it goes back to me, and on my turn, I'm going to detach and resummon Yugioh and proceed to make an OTK. So what was the illegal play in this entire scenario? There was something that happened. If you didn't catch it, that means likely you probably would have been the victim of this particular illegal play. It's so easy to miss, especially for cards that aren't yours. Did you guys catch it? That's right. The artifact Mjolnir can't activate because the opponent activated Dominus Impulse from their hand. Artifact Mjolnir is a light monster when it's activating on your side of the field, or when it attempts to activate on your side of the field. Guess what? That's still a light monster that you currently control, and since you control it, it can't activate it because your light monsters are no longer allowed to activate, making decks like Malice, like Pyramid Tsurugi, something a bit more immune to, say, the Mjolnir lock. They just want to shotgun this card as fast as possible because it prevents the Mjolnir lock. But if you did this and you forgot that, hey, Mjolnir is not supposed to activate, I know a lot of people overlook this because even I overlooked it a couple of times myself. Basically, it is the illegal turn skip. So catch that. Hopefully you guys use this as a warm-up. Starting off with the first scenario here, I have a Lunalight Gold Leo in my hand. I attempt to normal summon out the card, and I attempt to activate the effect of Gold Leo. My opponent chains Imperm, and I don't have a follow-up for some reason. I have all my board breakers, for instance, and I have to pass turn to my opponent. They don't have anything either. They have a handful of hand traps, and they proceed to pass. Then it gets back to me. I top deck, say, this Fuwalos, and I am going to normal summon out Molcharmi Fuwalos during the main phase and proceed to take the 2 monsters and overlay them into Daenerys. My graveyard currently has no monsters, but I'm going to activate the effect and I'm going to use the effect to summon a monster back from the graveyard. This is, of course, where the argument starts to happen, because the other player thinks they knows about the rulings, and they're going to use the logic to argue against you, saying, hey, you can't activate Dugaris' effect to summon. You can only go for the drawing effect or the double attacking or whatever, because you don't have a monster in the graveyard to begin with. So how can you activate an effect where there are no monsters in the graveyard? Well, to my argument, I'm saying, hey, I can activate it whenever I want. I don't need a monster in the graveyard for me to activate Dugaris. It's just how Dugaris works. So eventually it's going to come up to a judge, and whether they're going to say, can you actually summon out the monster that you just detached while you have no monsters in the graveyard? The answer is yes, you can, and Dugaris is kind of like a special case because it's all about the wording of the card. Yes, Dugaris can summon back, say I wanted to summon back the Gold Leo back onto the field, okay? The reason why is so that I can activate the Gold Leo and try to get my effects all over again with this Gold Leo, just to essentially re-trigger my monster, for instance. The reason why Dugaris works is because of the wording on the card itself. You can detach 2 materials from this card, then activate one of the following effects. Since I have to detach first as a part of my cost, and then I choose to activate, by the time I've detached, I have already had monsters in the graveyard. And this is different from the typical I need to target a monster in the graveyard scenario. But this is the case where you don't need anything because of the way that Dugaris is worded. And it's just how Dugaris works. So I'm pretty sure most of you guys got this one. Let's get into some more annoying stuff. Question number 2. So this is going to be a Lunalight question regarding Ghost Bell. Can Ghost Bell negate polymerization if Lunalight Masquerade is active? So here's the scenario. Let's play it out. This is the board that has currently been established. We have the Kaleido Chick that just threw into the graveyard the Leo Dancer to copy the name. Cool, but this current Masquerade is right now not active. So the first action here is going to be activating the polymerization, fusing together the Gold Leo and the Kaleido Chick. Okay, that activates, successfully resolves, summon out our Perfume Dancer. This hits the graveyard. Chainlink 1, we're going to go with the Masquerade. Chainlink 2, they're going to go with the Perfume Dancer. Right here, the Perfume Dancer adds a copy of Lunalight Perfume into the hand, and Chainlink 1, the Masquerade now resolves to get back the poly, and we're going to choose to discard the Moltrami Fuelos into the graveyard, so the graveyard now has access for the polymerization. So at this point, to kind of close out the game, I want to activate my polymerization again. My opponent chains their Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. Like, oh, you're going to use your graveyard to fuse now, so I'm going to use Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion to negate the activation of your polymerization. Therefore, you can't fuse, and maybe you'll have to end your turn. In this particular case, I say, well, you can't use Ghost Bell. My poly doesn't fuse from the graveyard. They, of course, argue back saying, but your Lunalight Masquerade is currently active, meaning you can actually do it. I don't know if the action is going to perform or not, but think about like Shaddoll Fusion. You can always ask Shaddoll Fusion even if, you know, I don't have a monster summon out of the extra deck. It's just there's the potential to do it, therefore my Ghost Bell can negate your polymerization while your Lunalight Masquerade is active. You're going to have to kind of unwind the scenario, but essentially the judge will have to come by and answer this particular question. Who's in the right here? Can that Ghost Bell be activated to negate the polymerization while the Lunalight Masquerade is active? The answer to that is no, it cannot, because the card text of polymerization is the one in question here. The polymerization here doesn't mention anything about banishing cards out of the graveyard. In fact, the only thing that should have been negated should have been the Lunalight Masquerade. However, it was masked as Chainlink 1. Therefore, Perfume Dancer prevented the Ghost Bell from hitting the Masquerade, which allowed this poly to essentially bypass the Ghost Bell as well, because the polymerization card text does not include anything that regards banishing cards out of the graveyard to use as fusion material. Is that clear? It was like such a hard thing to explain to people because they bring up these examples like Joan Lockbird plus like Molcharmies, or they bring in the examples of, oh, you can always Ash Shaddoll Fusion, for instance, but these scenarios only muddy the thing of what really matters here, which is polymerization does not include anything that banishes out of the graveyard. That's it. That's as clear as day, and therefore this is not going to work. And because of that, now we're going to perform the action of banishing a bunch of cards and summoning out our big boss, Lunalight Liger Dancer. So that's kind of what would happen here in this particular scenario. So here's a scenario number 3 or 4. I activate Chaotic Elements as my first play, adding the yugioh into hand, putting this card into the graveyard. Okay, with that in the graveyard, my next play here is quite simple. I activate the yugioh and I want to summon out with Lupus. I can't summon Noroi, but at least even if they get rid of my cards, I can normal summon out the Noroi after. I special summon both of these monsters. And my opponent says, yo, on the resolution of your summon, I'm going to activate my Widow Anchor, targeting your yugioh, and I'm going to chain the other Widow Anchor and take control of your Lupus, taking control of both of my monsters. So both of these monsters get taken control, and so this is what I am left with. But because I have Chaotic Elements in my graveyard, my opponent worries that, hey, maybe he has an Noroi in hand, so they decide to go chain their final card, which is the Book of Eclipse, flipping them both face down. Because Chaotic Elements on my opponent controls like a light or dark, aqua or pyro, I can banish this out of the graveyard, retake control of one monster on the field, and so they decide to flip everything face down. Well, seeing that happened, I have nothing left anymore. All I have is Noroi that can't do anything, so I proceed to end phase. And end phase, of course, there's multiple effects that are expiring. Both of the Widow Anchors and the, I guess, the Book of Eclipse. Well, I want my monsters back, so I'm like, can I have my monsters back now? So they're like, oh, yeah, sure. I'll resolve all the effects. And so he gives it to me, and I'm like, oh, you're resolving all the effects, so Book of Eclipse, I'm going to flip them both face up, I'm going to draw 2 cards. Like, hey, whoa, don't draw 2 cards. I already resolved Book of Eclipse. Like, I resolved it while your monster is still on my side of the field. I'm like, hey, you can't do that. Why? You can't do that. There's no monsters on my side of the field. You can't resolve Book of Eclipse while there's no cards on my side of the field. Like, they, of course, argue back saying, yeah, I can. If, like, it's not like I get to, like, shuffle back cards in my hand from Ultrami Fuelos when I can't, you know, satisfy the condition to put cards back. It's kind of the same thing. This is the lingering effects. Did I meet the condition? Well, you didn't have any monsters. Well, that just sucks to be you. You just don't get any draws, and you can have your monsters back face down. I'm like, well, that's not right. Like, I can't confirm that you did this. So, who's in the right here? Does my opponent get to choose all of their flips first? Like, they can choose, like, I'm going to resolve the Book of Eclipse first, then I'll resolve Widow Anchor 1, then Widow Anchor 2, or does he have to give me back my monsters and allow the Book of Eclipse to actually have something to flip? Well, it sounds stupid when you say it like that. Obviously, the answer is, of course I don't get any of those draws. I would not assume that my opponent is that silly. Unless, of course, they worded it incorrectly. If my opponent says, okay, well, you can just have your cards back, and if they just say that and they don't say anything about the Book of Eclipse, I'm going to assume the Book of Eclipse has not been communicated to me. I'm like, well, then I'm going to resolve Book of Eclipse now. Since you didn't resolve it, I'm going to flip it face up. And if they try to kind of roll back on that, that's where you can be like, no, you gave it back to me before you said anything about Book of Eclipse. That's when you can say something about it. But if the opponent says, oh, I'm going to resolve everything and the Book of Eclipse as well, they need to communicate this. Because if they don't, you might be giving someone a pot of greed, okay? You don't want that. But that's the easy version of this question. Yes, your opponent can choose all of the lingering effects, so they can apply Book of Eclipse here while I have no monsters, give me back my face down monsters without flipping them, and then they can go for the double Widow Anchor, return one and then return the other one, and therefore I'm stuck with 2 monsters face down. All right, here's the hard version of this. No, it's not going to be as easy. They're going to have to give a ruling in this particular bonus hard question. This is the current scenario. This is all the cards that you see. You go to the table, there's a judge call, and there's a ruling dispute between 2 players. There's player A and player B. Player A is the K9 player, player B is the Sky Striker player. You go to the table, hey guys, what's going on? You guys having a ruling dispute? Someone explain the game state? How about you? Turn player. Who's turn player? You? Great. Can you explain the game state to me? Okay, currently it is the end of turn, is the end phase. Right? You know, getting confirmation from the opponent. Yeah, it's the end phase. And my opponent activated Sky Striker Widow Anchors previously in the turn to take control of both of my monsters. He activated both of them in a chain, so you know there was no issues there. And then he also, right after on resolution, he activated Book of Eclipse and flipped my monsters face down because he probably thought that I was going to use Chaotic Elements to take it back. Okay, that's great. So now we're proceeding to end phase, and he gives me back my monsters from Widow Anchor, and seeing that he didn't really say anything about the Book of Eclipse, I'm like, well, Book of Eclipse needs to resolve or finish resolving, so I'm gonna flip him face up and draw 2 cards. It's like, that's when he stopped me and says, oh, I already resolved Book of Eclipse. Book of Eclipse obviously was first. And I'm saying, no, well, you didn't say anything. It wasn't communicated, so I assume it wasn't even, part of the whole chain. And so I'm gonna attempt to draw 2 cards, and he says I can't, and here we are. Okay, well, player B, why don't you tell me your side of the story? No, that's like not what happened. Like, I told him Book of Eclipse was resolving first. I'm applying the effect first, and then he can have his monster back when Widow Anchor is expiring. Like honestly, why would I give him his monsters back first and then let it resolve the Book of Eclipse? That's just stupid. Like, why would I want to give him 2 cards? It doesn't make any sense. That's a bad move. So I definitely told him that, hey, Book of Eclipse first, and then you can have his monster back. But so this is the information that you're given. What do you do as a judge? You have to give a ruling. Leave your answer down in the comment section, because I would love to hear your thoughts on how to resolve this one. But well, that's it for this ruling video, guys. Leave it down in the comment section of how you did in each of these questions. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. But more importantly, I would love to know, what do you guys think about this added, judge question format where you're only given limited information on how you would handle the situation? Yes, I gave you kind of a harder one where it's like a he said, she said scenario and make you really think about the things that players say. But that's all I got for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell. We got more Genesis stuff. We got more Yu-Gi-Oh! I got more people to lock out. And thank you for watching.